I'm going to start off by introducing to my colleagues who will be hosting the webinar today. So first up is Jason, who's our customer success team lead, and Anne, who's one of our customer success managers, who also heads up our workflow design services, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about that later on. We also have Blake with us today, our CS team lead, and my name's Ellie, and I work on the customer support team. Okay, so just to let you know, you can ask questions throughout the webinar, but do that via the Q&A box, please. So we'll come back to those questions at the end of the session. Okay, but for now, I'm going to hand over to Jason and Anne, and we'll get started.
Great, thanks, Ellie. Again, I'm Jason. Thanks for everyone for coming. We have a lot of folks that are streaming in here, so thanks to everyone who is attending. Just as a note, we will be sending the recording, so we'll send that to everyone who's registered as well as those who have attended. So don't worry if you don't get all the details, we will pass them along. And also, I just want to mention at the top here, before we get going, we have great help documentation. That's actually an effort that Ellie heads up. She spends a lot of time building fantastic help documentation, and Ben on our team as well, who does a bunch of our videos. So those are all available in our help center, which is just process.st/help. So there's a lot of documentation about what we're going to talk about today. And then lastly, in terms of help and how to get support on this, my team is available to talk to anyone about this. So if you either have questions about it or you want to run through it with someone or want someone to kind of guide you through, I will tell you that if you've ever played with any sort of automation software of any type, it can be a little sticky here and there, just making sure that the logic all makes sense and that stuff. So feel free to reach out to us. That's why we're here. We spend a lot of time with customers, and I would encourage you to use that as much as possible. Okay, so let's hop into what we're doing here. So first of all, what is automation? And the basic idea here is that automations allow you to remove the people from the process. The process will continue while people are not necessarily having to do something. So you build that automation so that when something occurs, another thing will happen. Why would we use that? So there's a lot of reasons. You can think saving money, obviously. You know, the less time you have to get in there and do stuff, the less money you'll spend on it. You'll save time. When the tasks are happening automatically or things are getting checked off or occurring in other systems automatically, you don't have to go and do it. This is my favorite, which is actually reducing the number of errors. No matter how diligent we are, you're always going to have, you know, a typo or something like that that gets entered with someone's name or something when you're filling out a document. This ensures that when, you know, you go through and enter it in one system, it gets passed to another system automatically, and you don't have to worry about, you know, spell checking a second time. It's just more efficient, right? Like, we only have so much time in the day. I can tell you that my team is quite busy, and anything we can automate, we will do. It just makes us more efficient. We can handle more during the course of the day. And at the end of the day, you know, that means that we can really focus on the stuff that matters, that we can do, that only we can do, I should say. There are other things that can be done by the applications talking to each other. So we pass that off to them using automation. And then we focus on the stuff that's actually like talking to customers or answering help tickets and things like that, that, you know, are real big value add for us. So we have the exciting thing that we're announcing here, and that we've announced over the last few days, is that we have integrations built directly into Process Street. There are lots of ways that you can integrate and automate things, but we've built these 6, and this, we're sort of getting started here, based on a lot of conversations with customers about what they'd like to see, what their processes look like, you know, the systems they're currently using. And we've kind of found the best, we believe, option that encompasses as many of those as possible and is as flexible as possible. Because one of the things that you probably know is that we serve a lot of different types of customers, and there are a lot of different types of workflows that happen on Process Street. So, you know, having a very prescriptive integration that allows for, you know, a specific automation would be great for a handful of people, but it wouldn't serve everyone. And if you've ever used a system like Salesforce, you know that it's extremely customizable, and everyone runs a different instance of Salesforce. There's no 2 instances that are exactly the same. So our integration and the automation that we support has to be super flexible. So we've done our best to accommodate that. And I think you'll find that, particularly in the world of Salesforce, our automations and integration is about as flexible as they come. So what we have available straight out of the box is Google Sheets. You'll notice here the Process Street logo, and that might seem a little strange, but we have a Process Street to Process Street automation that is available. And I'll actually show an example of that in a minute, so it'll make a little bit more sense. We have Slack, DocuSign, Jira, and Salesforce. So hopefully you're using one of these 6. You're obviously using, or I should say 2. You're obviously using Process Street, but hopefully you're using 2 of these. And even if you aren't using one of the other systems, if you're using Process Street, there's still a lot of value you can get out of these direct integrations. So we'll spend some time going through that. So how do we build an automation? Just to level set for everyone, the idea is that we have a trigger, and that is something that starts the automation. So for example, a new lead is created in Salesforce, or an opportunity is marked as closed won in Salesforce, or a task is checked, like a specific task is checked in Process Street, or a workflow run is completed. You get to the end of it and you want something else to happen. So those are our triggers, or examples of our triggers, I should say. And then we've got actions, and that's what happens after the trigger initiates it. So for example, we could run a new workflow in Process Street. So something occurred and now we want to run a workflow. It could create a row in Google Sheets and add data to it. It could post a message to Slack, and that's something that we use heavily. We're huge Slack users, and we have tons of channels that have automated messages that are keeping everyone informed of how the business is running. Or it could update a lead in Salesforce, so you can pass information back to it. Once you've completed the workflow run in Process Street, it can then pass information back to Salesforce and update Salesforce if you want it to. So again, we have a trigger and an action. The trigger is what starts the automation, and the action is what happens once that, automation is kicked off. So that's a basic concept. So within our automation that we have available, and that we'll go through here in a minute, we have 3 different things that can interact with our automation. So there's run a workflow. So run a workflow when the opportunity status changes to closed won in Salesforce. So we just closed a new customer, and now we want to run an onboarding workflow for the new customer. That's possible. The second one is when a task is checked, then so when a task is checked in our sales workflow, then send a contract out for signature via DocuSign. So we've just gotten to the task that says, yes, we successfully signed up this customer and we've collected all the correct information. Now send a DocuSign out to them for them to sign the contract. The third one is when a workflow run is complete, then do something. So when our hiring workflow is complete, run an onboarding workflow for that new hire. So we've gone through our list of applicants. We've selected which one we want. We've got the information for that person. Now we need to onboard them. And we'll give you a couple of examples of how that works. So I'm going to run through the first example. And this is actually a Process Street to Process Street example. There's also a Slack integration in there because we can't help ourselves. We have to have Slack. So what I'm going to show here is how we do that. So basically we have a scenario that I described a second ago. We have our pre-employment. So we've gone through a bunch of screening for people. We have decided on our candidate that we have hired, and that person has agreed to come along. So what we've done is we have collected the data from that person, and think of me as an HR person. Okay, so I'm running this workflow for Hector. I've actually gone in and I've filled in a bunch of these form fields in advance, just in the interest of time to save that so you don't have to watch me fumble through my typing. So, as the HR person, I've gone in, I've entered their information, got their email address, phone number, their job title, and their department that they're in. So I'm going to complete that task. I've gone through and I've added all of the uploads that I need to. So the various forms that we need to collect, signatures that we need to collect, all those have been checked off as subtasks, and I've uploaded all the documents. So we have a record of that. So I'm good there. I'm going to complete that task. And then I've done all the associated things that we need to do to get them ready for their first day. So they have their work email address, they have access to all the systems, and they've been invited to the company account for Process Street. So this is, while ours is the one that we actually use, and this is obviously an example, but the one we actually use is much more exhaustive than this because we use a million different tools that we need to put them in, and various people in the company do that. This is a very close representation to how we actually do this within Process Street. So we've done all that, we've completed the task, and now this approval has been sent out to the head of the HR. So the head of HR is my boss. That's been sent off to them. They've been notified that they need to do this approval. They can come in, they look through all the information, make sure everything looks good. And assuming that everything looks good, now pretend I'm the head of HR. I'm going to approve this. And then we get to our last task here. And this is what's going to kick off our automation. So you see here down at the bottom, there's a little symbol here for Process Street. This is the automation. So when a workflow run is complete, then we're going to do something. We're going to kick off another workflow in Process Street. So I'm going to complete the task, get the confetti that everyone loves. Our automation is running. You can see up here, it's starting to run. And then it's completed. We can see the checklist or the check mark. So we're all good there. So I'm going to go back to our HR folder. I'm going to look at our workflow runs. And you can see here that there is a workflow run for Hector Alvarez. And it was done a few seconds ago. This is the one where the automation did it. I'm going to open that, and here's part of the excitement. Not only did it kick off the workflow run, but you can see it also populated it with information. So this is information that already lived in that other workflow run that I had previously had approved by the head of HR. It passed that information into this workflow run. So now I don't have to enter it here. And not only does that save me time, but I also know that it's correct and everything should be set up for it. You'll also see that there's a little Slack icon here. So as I'm working through the onboarding or the orientation for this person, I've verified that all that information is correct. I'm going to complete that task. And then here is where our automation for Slack kicks in. And I'm going to complete this task. And then we are going to hop over here to Slack. And we can see that a message has been posted to our Slack channel, our general onboarding, or excuse me, our general channel in Slack. And this is a pre-formatted message that goes whenever we check that task, and it announces to the entire company that we have a new hire and that they should reach out to that person and make them feel welcome. This is exactly how our system works internally. We post that message to our internal Slack, and everyone reaches out and welcomes a new person that is now a part of the team. So you can see there that that's very smooth how you would pass that information, and you can verify that it's all there, saving us a ton of time. There's a lot of examples where this might be useful. You may not be onboarding people, you may not be in HR. Another place that we see that this is super common, and it probably is very illustrative of how this will work, is in real estate, in particular in property management. If you think, when a company is managing an apartment and they get a bunch of people applying, they fill out a workflow for those various folks that they're doing the screening on. So they do all the background checks and whatever they need to do, get their bank information, collect all their personal information, all that sort of stuff in one workflow run. And then once they've actually decided that that's going to be their person, they've selected that person, then you can do an automation that kicks off another workflow that has the tenant onboarding. And that would give them all of the information about the property, all of the things that they need to do, they maintain, inform them what they need to do. And then lastly, hopefully way down the line, there's also a tenant offboarding. So they've decided they're going to move out of that place. You can also kick off an automation that has a move out date. You put in a move out date on another workflow, and it could kick off the tenant offboarding. So you can see there, you can kind of string these together to kind of pass that information. And at no point would you have to double enter information. That's one of the things that we hear from a lot of our real estate folks in the property management, is that they just fill out information for individuals and properties all the time, you know, in multiple different systems. So this can allow you to pass that through, pass it to other systems, however you may want to do it. So at that, I am going to pass it over to Anne, and she is going to lead us through a couple more examples. Go for it, Anne.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, so those are really good examples, and I'll share a few more with you. So hopefully the wheels are turning for you for where you might want to implement some of these automations. This is an example that we also use internally in Process Street, in which if, let's say, we have a customer that encounters a bug on the platform and they reach out to us and let us know, well, it's going to hit our customer support team. The customer support team is going to learn about the bug, and then we need to pass that on to our product and engineering team so that they can look into it and fix it. So there's kind of different departments talking to each other. And in that situation, so our engineering and product team uses Jira to manage those issues. But our support team doesn't so much interact with Jira. And also, just kind of giving you the context for why this is important to set up this automation, our product and engineering team, they need specific information about that bug or that issue that was encountered. If we just say, hey, there's an issue with the upload widget, they're like, okay, can I please have some more details? So, you know, rather than depending on each person to remember everything they should report, we've got a Process Street workflow that manages the process of reporting an issue. So it might look something like this. Here's our Process Street workflow run. I've also filled it out so you don't have to watch me type, but I've run a workflow about a bug in the upload widget. And I've answered some questions about it. It's not accepting PNG files for some reason. So these are some questions that the product and engineering team wants from us. I complete that task and move on. There's other things they want us to do to make sure that we're making, this is again, just for efficiency and great communication between teams. They want us to, you know, test it on our end. Can we reproduce it? What should have happened? Did we find a workaround? Submitting a screen recording, some screenshots that we're seeing so that we can pass that information along. And you can see here, we've got our logo for Jira. So this automation is going to pass this information to Jira. And again, you know, even if our support team did use Jira, which, you know, that's just not our go-to app, but even if we did, imagine the sort of discipline and also just consistency to remember to do each of these things and report each of those things in the issue. So this is awesome because Process Street reminds us what we need to do so we don't have to think about it. We don't have to remember. If we're training new support people, it's really easy for them to pick up our process. So it's really great to have that workflow. Now notice, as soon as I complete this task, we've got our workflow, or excuse me, our automation kicking off. You can see our little lightning bolt there. And it is popping this information over to Jira. So you can see it, did you see it pop up right there at the bottom? Upload widget not accepting PNG files. So there it is. Also, what you will see is in Process Street itself, the Jira ticket number automatically populated. So you can see it was updated by automation a few seconds ago. So that's cool because just, you know, not just for the consistency purposes, but also just time saving. You know, do you ever just, when you have a million tabs open and you just get distracted because you're like, what was I doing? And why did I end up in this tab? And you have to go and navigate around that application to find this, you know, ticket number and then bring it back. It's all of that is happening automatically, which is super cool, huge time saver. You'll also notice here, we've got one more automation, which is with Slack again. One of our company values is over communicate everything twice. So we would want to make sure that we are alerting the rest of the customer support team and of course the product and engineering team that, hey, there's a bug with this widget. We want to all make sure we're on the same page. And I don't really want to type that out in Slack and then again, copy paste the ticket number and all that stuff. It's just tedious. So all I do is I complete this task, I get my confetti party. And if we hop over to Slack, here it is. Notice we've got a brand new message in Jira, or excuse me, in the technical channel in Slack about that I've reported a bug in Jira, and I can link straight to the issue in Jira. Huge time saver, reduces errors, makes us consistent, keeps us honest with making sure we're doing all our due diligence. So that is actually something that we do in Process Street. So I want to point out one other example. This is one that actually kicks off in Salesforce. So what happens is when there's, let's say you have an opportunity in Salesforce, and every time you close a deal, you want to automatically kick off your customer onboarding workflow. So again, if we were to do that manually, it'd be like, all right, I've closed the deal in Salesforce. Now I need to go to Process Street and run that workflow and do all these steps and copy paste data from Salesforce into Process Street. Who has time for copy pasting, let alone typing, right? So this is pretty cool. What we can do is when we close this deal, we've got an awesome deal, new business opportunity with Google. We're going to close the deal. And when we say that we won the deal, automatically, what's happening on Process Street side is you're going to see a workflow was automatically run. Here it is, Google new business. And you know, this can automatically be assigned to people as well. So the correct people will get notification that there's something for them to do. And we go into our workflow run. And what you're going to see here is we've got lots of automation set up in this one. So obviously we want to show you the different ways that these automations can work. And also just thinking about, again, the time saved between, for all the different apps that we need to interact with when we're onboarding a new customer. We need to get information from Salesforce. We need to inform the team what's going on in Slack. We need to actually get their contract going in DocuSign. And then there's a couple others as well when there's an expansion opportunity. I'll show you in a moment. So all these things need to happen. So might as well have an automation handle it. So first of all, notice all of these details right here. These automatically populated. You can see again, updated by automation a few seconds ago. Those came straight in from Salesforce, those opportunity details. And now what we want is we want Process Street to go to Salesforce and pull the account details. So right here, what you'll notice is when we go to account details, it automatically pulled in the customer name and the customer website because there's an automation to tell it to go do that. And then there's one more thing. This is basically Process Street and Salesforce having a conversation with each other. And all I'm doing is you know, completing tasks and working through it. What you'll notice here, this is another automation to Salesforce that pulls through the contact details. So now we've got our contact details right here. So then we just keep moving through. We have to assign the account manager. We'll say I'm the account manager for this one. Oops. This is why we don't make you watch us type. So we've assigned the account manager. And now we're sending this for approval. It's going to Jason to approve it. So let's just pretend I'm Jason for a moment. He's going to approve this. Notice this is connected to a Slack automation again. So the moment he approves it, you can see our little lightning bolt going again. We can pop into Slack and we can see in our sales channel, I got congratulated for closing a deal with Google. Go me. And then now we want to send this to DocuSign. So what we're going to do is the moment we close that today, the moment we complete this task, it's going to pop over to DocuSign. Pardon me here. Logged me out. So let's pop into DocuSign and I'll show you that automatically the contract is generated. So what you're going to see is right here. So here's our contract. First of all, what it did was it pulled through our contact's name and it pulled through our account manager's name, my name right there. And then if we continue on to look at the actual contract, let's just continue on there. What you'll see is it added the recipients automatically. So we don't need to do this ourselves. It's automatically pulled in me, the account manager, and pulled in our customer. Those emails are automatically there. And now we can even look at the contract itself. This is obviously a very simple contract, but it pulled through name and company name and all that. And you can pull through as much detail as you need. So you can pull through addresses, your fee percentage, all the details of your deal. If you're doing a contract such as this, as long as you've got form fields in Process Street to capture it, you can have the automation automatically send it over to DocuSign, and took you, 2 seconds to click a button. Actually, it doesn't even take 2 seconds to click a button, half a second probably, right? So then let's scoot on through the rest of our process. Let's say I fill out some meeting notes about our onboarding call. And now I've got a question, is there an opportunity to actually expand? So we got this new business, but can we expand this deal perhaps? And of course, yes, we can. And so now you can see that we've got some more tasks that popped up. This is our conditional logic feature, which is also kind of an automation in a way as well. So we're now seeing that we want to record this opportunity in Google Sheets. And the reason is because, again, speaking of working with different departments, different teams communicating, we've got, our finance team that they don't really work in Salesforce. That's really more for our sales team, but they want to keep an eye on what opportunities are happening in case, so they can kind of keep an eye on the finances there. So we're going to call this Google expansion. And we're going to say this is for another, it's another 39,000. So that's pretty awesome. The moment I complete this task, you can see again, this is a Google Sheets automation. If we pop over to our Google Sheet, there it is, popped up right there, the account manager, the opportunity name, the amount. So now our finance team is in the loop as well. And then lastly, because we have this expansion opportunity, we now want to send this to Salesforce again. We want to automatically create an opportunity in Salesforce, which is, takes a few minutes to do all that. This is going to close hopefully on July 1st. So the moment I complete this task, back on over to Salesforce. Here we go. And let me just go ahead and refresh my screen, and we'll see here for our Google account that in the opportunities, here it is. Our Google expansion opportunity is there with the close date of July 1st. All of that, again, happened with the click of a button. And then finally, we're ready to complete this workflow. And you can see, again, we've got one more automation connecting this back to Slack. The moment we complete this workflow, we are greeted with confetti, and then Slack has our message here. So we can see that we've just onboarded this customer, contract value 89,000, shout out to me, woohoo. And we're off to the races with our new customer, Google. And I'll pass it back to you, Jason.
Great, thank you. So the one thing I wanted to point out on all of these is for a lot of people, myself included, the automations and the creating those automations can be kind of tangly, and kind of thinking through how that happens. Sometimes it's not super clear to me. That's why we're here. We are more than happy to help with that stuff. So if you want to chat about what your workflow is and how you can automate things, or even if you can automate things, we're happy to talk to you about that and set aside some time to work through it with you. So please don't be afraid to reach out if this is at all interesting and you can't figure it out yourself, or you just want help figuring it out. We're happy to do that. So please do that whenever you would like. Okay, so we're going to move on just slightly here. Still in the product zone, we are going to talk about some recent product updates. As you guys have probably seen, we have been doing a fair amount of work on the product in recent months. I just wanted to recap a couple of those in case you weren't aware. The first thing is that we made sort of a name change around what previously were templates and checklists. They're now workflows and workflow runs. That was not a big functional change. So there's not a lot to talk about in terms of like how things work differently. It was just an adjustment we made for sort of the direction we're heading. But I wanted to highlight that because that was, you know, if you're in there every day, that was a change, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, hey, there's things just changed. So I wanted to highlight that. A couple of things that we saw, or at least one thing that we saw during the examples that we were going through, live updates to form fields. You saw in Anne's example that it was pulling through, for example, the JIRA ticket number, and it says updated by automation user. That happens as, you know, information is being populated. It will automatically push that into your tasks as you're working on them. Likewise, if someone else updates a form field while you're on a task, it will push that information too. So if like Anne and I are collaborating on a task, or even a workflow in general, and Anne finishes one of the tasks, or she, you know, adds information, it'll refresh my version of that so that I see that happening. We're not like typing over each other. So that's exciting. Live updates to the inbox. Likewise, on the inbox, we're trying to make that a good place to work where you're getting all the latest information. And those you work with are getting all the latest information. So a lot of the businesses that we work with are doing so because they need people to collaborate on workflows. They have multiple teams that are working on it, or they're in different departments or whatever. So this would actually update the tasks in the work, or in the inbox, as things are occurring. So if I, for example, check off a task that was assigned to me, and Anne is in her inbox working on her tasks on various workflows, the task that then is unlocked because it was a stop task, the tasks that were then unlocked beyond that are assigned to Anne would pop up in her inbox, and she would know she has to go work on them, you know, sort of in real time. So she doesn't have to refresh or go out or anything like that. All updated on the fly. Run multiple checklists. So we have had this feature where you can run multiple checklists. You upload a list of email addresses, and it will, you know, spin out a bunch of checklists, or excuse me, workflows for those folks. This actually allows you to upload information and also drive the workflows based on that. So for example, if you wanted to use dynamic due dates, and one of your tasks is due 5 days after the, you know, a specific date, you could upload that date as part of your spreadsheet for each of the workflows that you want to kick off. And then they would dynamically, you know, filter through each workflow and have different dates depending on what you had entered. So you can start to use a lot of the features that are built into the system, or assignments or things like that. You know, there's a lot of different options that you have, but that's an enhancement to the run multiple workflows. That's a mistake there on the slide. It should be workflows. Slack app. Okay, so this is a little tangly, but I'm going to walk you through this. So we just saw that there is an automation for Slack. And that's basically if you want to post messages to Slack when things occur. So we saw, you know, you check off a task and it posts a message saying like, hey, you know, go congratulate the newest hire and reach out to them. That's great. Super useful. We use that all the time. The other thing that we have is a Slack app. And what that does is it installs Process Street in your Slack environment. And when you get assigned things, or there's a notification basically that occurs in Process Street, it will post it to a channel in Slack that's, you know, there for you, and you can see it. So that's cool. So every time, you know, we have a new hire and I have to go put them in several systems, I get a notification that I've been assigned to a couple of tasks, which is cool. The even better part of this is that if it's a task that I have to go enter information in, like in form fields, I can actually do that in Slack. So I can open that task and then fill out the form fields and submit it. And I never have to leave Slack. So I can tell you from my personal usage of Process Street, this is a huge feature for me because I can keep that stuff queued up that I have to manage. And like at the end of the day, I can go through and check off all my tasks and, you know, fill out my form fields that I need to, and just do it right in Slack. And it's amazing. So I would encourage you to install that if you are a Slack company at all. That's a free application for us. So there's no hurt or no harm in doing it. So go for that. And then lastly is global search. That is a new search box that you see at the top of the screen with much better search capabilities than our old one. It's one of the big complaints, or had been one of the big complaints about our product, was that it was hard to search for your workflows. I guess at that point it was checklists. It was hard to search for your checklists. Now we have a global search that allows you to find your workflows quite easily across all of your folders and all that sort of stuff. So all good there. Okay, so now the exciting part. We saw the automations, that was exciting. We talked a little bit about what's has come, but I'm sure you all know that. What's coming next? So we have a feature that we are calling Pages that will be released in the next couple of months, next few months. That is a means to document all of the knowledge in your business. And so what we mean by that is you currently know with Process Street, you can document your workflows. So basically the repetitive workflows that occur within your organization. But we all know that there's a bunch of things that you don't necessarily need to do a workflow around, but it is information that people in your organization need to know. So for example, what's your PTO policy? Or what is your paternity leave policy? That's very relevant to us because Blake is awaiting the arrival of a child right now. So everyone needs to know that. We need to know where it is. It's always hard to find that stuff because who knows where that stuff is kept. It's probably kept in some Google Doc that's never been updated, or it's not even documented, more likely, depending on the size of your company. It might not be anywhere. So Pages will allow you to collect all that information, and people will be able to search for it and find it and then go and interact with it as they see fit. It will also, interact with workflows. So we're tying that all together. But if you think like, okay, we're going to put our company manual in, digitally in a place where we can update it and everyone can access it. That's what Pages is for. And there will be a lot more information around that. But as I said, that's well underway. We actually have an internal, we're using it internally right now as we continue to build it out, and we'll be announcing betas and the worldwide release shortly. So that's exciting. The other thing that I'm going to turn it back over to Anne for here is a new program that we have started offering in the last month or two that Anne is actually heading up. So she is the right person to talk about it. Anne, go for it.
Okay, awesome. Yes. So Jason talked about it a moment ago. If looking at all of these automations that we're showing you, hopefully you're seeing some possibilities, and maybe you're thinking, I would love to have all of my applications talking to each other, but I don't necessarily have interest in learning how to do it, or I don't have the time. And same with just building workflows in general, because we know that also building your workflows is thinking through your process and documenting it, and it just takes time out of your day. So if taking the time and energy to stream your workflows feels a little bit like this image, we have a brand new offering that we're super excited about, which is that our workflow design team will build your workflows with you or for you. So there are a couple ways that can look. We can completely build it for you. Let's say you have your workflow documented on a Word doc or Excel or something like that. You can give us your documentation, show us how your workflow works or your process in general works, and we can build it for you inside of Process Street. We can also serve as a dedicated strategist. So let's say you do want to build it yourself, or you want to have somebody in your team be your in-house workflow owner. We can work with them side by side to make sure that you're utilizing the features in the best way possible, and building out your workflows to be super efficient and have best practices and stuff like that. We can help you with your automations and integrations, either, again, helping you or doing it for you. We can train your team, and for enterprise customers, we can even support with ongoing maintenance. If you are interested, you can contact me at this website, Jason, if you flip to the next slide there. This is a quick link that will take you to my personal calendar, tinyurl.com/workflowdesign. tinyurl.com/workflowdesign will take you to my calendar to set up an exploration call with me. And I would love to talk with you about your workflow needs, automation needs, whatever you're looking to have done. And we can talk about how we could perhaps help you out.
Great. Okay, now we are going to hop over into the Q&A portion of the programming. We have a lot of questions, and I'm actually going to exit full screen here because when I do that, I can't see the questions. As usual, we will stick around and offer or answer any questions that you guys have, anything related to Process Street. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to today's content, although we're happy to dive into that too. But basically, we're here to answer questions. So, you know, feel free to enter those. If there's the Q&A button in Zoom, preferably just enter them in there rather than the chat. It's easier for us to manage. So if you could do that. Before we hop into that, as people are entering questions, I just want to give a quick endorsement for what Anne's been doing. She's been at it for a couple of months. There are a couple of things that have stood out to me. One is that we have had numerous repeat customers. So people who came in and said, yeah, I'll give it a try, and then came back and did, you know, multiple workflows or multiple sessions, whatever the case may be. So it's working. And then secondly, for any of you who have worked with Anne, you could attest to this. You have one of our, you know, strongest workflow builders, and she has put together some impressive workflows for folks that have had big impacts on their business. And we have plenty of people attesting to that, which we'd be happy to share with you. So if it's at all of interest to you, you know, reach out, and we'd be happy to meet with you, and then no doubt tune up your workflow situation. Cool. All right. So we are going to hop into the questions here. We have quite a few, so bear with us. We will get to them. And if for some reason we can't get to them all, we will reach out to you after the fact. So just let us know, or feel free to send anything in, and we'll get on it. Okay. So so first question is there a list of applications that are integrated for automations available? There is. If you go into our Help Center and search for integrations, that's the best place to find all of our resources around integrations. So it's got down to like step-by-step instructions for each of the integrations that we offer. But just as a quick recap, we have Google Sheets, Process Street to Process Street, Salesforce, Jira, DocuSign, and what's the one I'm missing?
Jira, DocuSign, Google Sheets, and Slack. Process
there
Street.
We go.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I had to count on my fingers.
Yeah, me too. So those are the ones that we currently offer. And, you know, as we update, we'll obviously, you know, let people know if there are more that become available. Do
you want to trade off, Jason, so that you can?
Yeah. You want me to? I'll just read it out, and you can just answer.
Sure.
So a question regarding transferring from another process software, Flowster. Is there a way you can transfer existing processes across?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there isn't like an export a process from Flowster into Process Street example, but so since they're just designed and the whole, you know, formatting of how the workflows are designed is different, that would be a little bit of a copy pasting situation. And if you want help with that, you can of course reach out to us, since we are offering built for you services now. A great question.
For the integration list mentions Office 365. I'm assuming that means all of the apps associated with, example, Excel and Word. So just a clarification, we do not directly integrate with Office 365. There are other solutions for that. One thing that I actually did not mention as we were going through this is we do integrate with Zapier, which is a tool that sits in between us and other systems. And Zapier connects to literally thousands of different pieces of software. So if you're interested in pursuing, you know, anything beyond the 6 that we talked through today, I think that's something to look at. Again, we can advise you on that, you know, and figure out whether or not it's even possible, depending on what you're trying to do. We're happy to do that. We use Zapier extensively. We've moved all of our integrations that are with these 6 systems that we talked about over to our direct integrations. When you have a direct integration, it's just less likely to fail. It's tighter. You're not relying on another system. So there are big benefits to doing that. But that's not every system we use. We use other systems as well. So we have Zapier running as well. In fact, we are a very healthy customer for Zapier. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. And then if you have any questions about it, just let us know. Oh, perfect for you, Anne. With the new offering, is your design team at Process Street employees, or are they independent contractors hired to help build for Process Street?
Yeah, great question. So we work directly with Process Street. We are in-house.
Yep.
Yep.
We had tried independent contractors before, but in-house is working best for us. So we will be sticking with that for the foreseeable future. Let's see. We have a lot of workflows built out, but over the last 2 years using the service, many updates have taken place. Do you help us clean up these workflows to utilize the new features? Our conditional logic has gotten out of hand at this point, and all the changes to the process over time. Is this an additional cost? So what I would recommend in this case is just set up a call with our support team, and you can either hit us at the little icon in the bottom right-hand corner when you're Process Street. That's actually the easiest way to do it. We have people that are in front of that all the time. So just reach out via the app and just set up a time to talk to us. And we can kind of assess like what that looks like. The way we're managing the workflow design services and support at this point is we default to support. The vast majority of people will never talk to our workflow design unless they specifically want that. I think if it becomes a huge project, we may look at kicking that over to workflow design and we just talk about like what that looks like. But I would definitely encourage you to reach out to us and like we can just assess and manage what you need to have done. And in the realm of conditional logic, I would recommend that any of you default to reaching out to us if you have any questions, because it can obviously have big impacts on your workflow. And my team is they're all experts in conditional logic. They're in it all day. And what may take you 3 hours to figure out, they could probably figure out in 20 minutes. So, feel free to reach out. They're all going to be mad that I said that because there's the pressure on to figure it out in 20 minutes. But nonetheless, they're adept at it and can certainly help. So feel free to let us know.
AKA conditional logic nerds. We kind of love it.
That's right.
Love doing this stuff.
That is true. Can you build or edit a simple workflow with an automation to show us? I'll jump in on this one, Anne. We're not going to do that right on the webinar just because it takes a little while to do that and to make sure that everything's lined up and all that. However, we do have videos in our help center that do that exact thing. So I would encourage you to go search that out. And in fact, we can send a link to our help resources after this when we send out a recording of the video. And that has videos that walk you through. They're 3 minutes long and show you exactly what you need to do. So it's definitely worth taking a look at. Likewise, we're happy to hop on a call and walk you through, building a simple one. If that doesn't suffice, we'd be happy to do that. What is the fee structure for workflow design assistance?
So sure. So the basic, it ranges from 150 to 200 an hour, depending on what package you choose. So what I would say is if that's something you're interested in, then definitely book a call with me and we can talk about, your project. Every project is very different. Some people have a very simple workflow. Some of them have really complex ones. So that link, again, if you didn't get it, it's tinyurl.com/workflow design. But that's the long and short of the pricing there.
How do these automations compare to Salesforce automations? And when do you use one over the other? That's a good question. And that's actually a discussion that we have on a semi-regular basis. I will say that there are certain instances where Salesforce has proven for us to be better. Sometimes, or usually that's when we're doing an automation within Salesforce. That obviously, that stands out as an obvious one. The other thing is that Salesforce, if you're operating within Salesforce's environment, we found that some of those connections are really good. We recently did an automation with using Pardot or integration using Pardot. And we used a combination of Process Street and the automations within Salesforce. So I guess my answer is it kind of depends on what you're looking to do. When you have a direct connection straight to Process Street, like I'm not sure that's much different, right? Because you're basically doing a direct connection to Salesforce, assuming that's what you're talking about. But we internally use ours as a default, and then we use Salesforce when it doesn't work or, it's particularly complicated. But they both serve their purpose. And if you're familiar with Salesforce, you probably have a pretty good idea of what their capabilities are. Do you have an automation with Zoom and how a webinar activity can be automated?
That's a cool idea.
Yeah.
We do not have an automation with Zoom, but we are always taking requests too. So we started with these 6 because they're the applications that most people use. However, there is an automation with Zoom via Zapier. So as Jason mentioned, if you have Zapier connects with, I think it's over 3,000 apps now. So that's a good place to check if it's not one of our native automations within Process Street. But like I said, we do take requests. So if you ever have feature requests or automation requests, you can send those to us in the support chat and the little help button in the lower right corner, and we track all of that.
Yeah, so please do that. And that's a good point. In general, with feature requests, please feel free to submit those to us. Almost everything we build is based on requests from customers. So please send that in, and the more sort of requests we get, the more likely it is to be built. So it's basically a vote for whatever it is you're looking for. So definitely do that on the automations or on the integrations. The other thing I'll say is that there is a possibility that we could build custom automations depending on the system and the complexity and stuff like that. So we're happy to talk about that. I will pregame that by saying that is not an inexpensive situation. If any of you are in the software business, you would know that integrating 2 systems is not always super straightforward. But for the right instance, super mission critical process that you're running, the answer is that makes sense in a lot of cases. So feel free to reach out. We're happy to have that conversation. And just see whether or not it's feasible, and we can assess, what it would look like. Are all of the integrations able to communicate back and forth? For example, if I update something in Zoho CRM, can I set that up to where it triggers to the start of a process in Process Street? So Zoho is available on Zapier. So what you're asking is very possible. The sort of generic answer to your question there is it really depends on the software and how they have integrated with Zapier in this case. So anyone on Zapier, it's going to be dependent on not only us, but the other software that you're using. So I don't know the specific answer to that. My guess would be yes. Knowing Zoho, you can probably do that. But from our standpoint, that should be possible. The other thing I will mention is that for any of the 6 that we went through today, that is possible. So it's a 2-way discussion. So if in the CRM world, obviously Salesforce is the one that we have in there. In our case, we saw that process kickoff from Salesforce that Anne did. We also post back a ton of information to our Salesforce account. So like my team on the customer success side, when we have a meeting with a customer, we take notes and we update things, but we do that in Process Street because we're following a workflow. And then when we complete that workflow, it actually posts a lot of that information back to Salesforce and updates it there. So that's kind of a 2-way thing that we have going on. Can you embed Process Street into existing platforms or apps so that staff do not have to also log into Process Street in order to utilize the process checklist? Want to take that, Anne, or do you want me to?
Sure. So I guess I would say kind of, sort of, like in a way, Jason mentioned with the Slack app, which you can, is free, and you can basically plug Process Street right into Slack. And So then, you can actually, complete tasks, fill things out without logging into Process Street, and you're doing it straight from Slack. The other thing would be, let's say, if you've got an automation set up to where, like via Zapier, where a record is added to Airtable, it automatically kicks off a workflow in Process Street. That is happening whether somebody's logging into Process Street or not. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but basically all those things are happening in the back end and don't require somebody to log in and go do something. But of course, if you want your team to be interacting with Process Street and moving through the workflows and using Process Street, then they would log in at some point to interact with that, that workflow in Process Street. Hopefully that makes sense.
I'll just add to that real quickly, two things. One, it just, very directly, it's not possible to embed Process Street in another piece of software. So that's not possible. However, we do offer single sign-on. So if people are going back and forth, or you need them to like easily get into Process Street, that is an option. And that would eliminate any, need to log in to different systems. So that could be done. Is there a way to view tasks in calendar view? Also, can you show an example of what the inbox would look like when you are able to see when others in your organization has completed a task? It is not possible to see tasks in, well, kind of. Let me flip over to the inbox here. So you can see, this is not going to be a super awesome example because it's not fully built out at the moment. However, you can see that these tasks are grouped by no due date. They are also grouped by ones that have due date and their chronological order. So they're not, it's not a calendar view per se. However, it is, listed based on what needs to happen, and when they're due. So, like which are the ones that I need to work on today, for example, and which are the ones that are, off in the future. That's pretty straightforward and easy to see. It might be difficult to actually show the real-time stuff as an example here. But I can just explain, if something were assigned to me while I'm in here, it would just pop in another line with that task. Or if it had a due date that's like, it needs to be done today, it would pop it up above with the due date listed under a heading for, what the due date is. So that's how that would work. Is it possible to pass data to other applications using their API or via Zapier? Want to take that in?
Yes, absolutely. And it looks like this question came in a while ago. So yeah, absolutely. Zapier would be the way to do that. We also have a reporting API, which is with Process Street. As you're gathering a bunch of data in Process Street, if you're wanting to be able to analyze that data and, pull reports and see graphs and charts of your data, that is available with our reporting API. So if that's something that's of interest, then definitely reach out to us and we can share more details with you about that. And there's also an article in the Help Center as well, if you look up reporting API.
Just a note on time, I know we were scheduled for an hour, but we'll stick around and answer questions as long as there are questions, or at least I will. I don't have an obligation after this, so we'll just keep going if anyone wants to keep asking questions. Will any of these automations be templates we can access? So we don't have templates for the automations. And the reason for that is that they're very custom. And most of the systems that we have integrated with are very customizable systems. So for example, the stages of an opportunity that we have in Salesforce are different than what yours would be, for example. Like we have very custom stages based on our sales process. So it doesn't really make sense to have templates per se. That said, we're happy to work through what you're looking to do. So, I guess you get custom support from us on that. If you just hit us up, we'll just work through what you're looking to do and what your automation might be, and help you through that. And we'll teach you how to do it. It's not just us doing it for you. So I assume that people want to learn this. So we're happy to do that. I'm new to Process Street. Can your application be customized for workflow process? Anne.
Yeah, so definitely, and that is what Process Street is here for. So you've heard of project management softwares, and Process Street is basically process management or workflow management. So the idea with Process Street is you not only have a place to document your workflows, like your standard operating procedures, but you have a place to actually implement those recurring processes and track and manage what's going on every step of the way. So that's exactly what it's built for. And welcome to Process Street.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Is it possible to pass data to Process Street using another app's API? Definitely. There are various ways that could be done. One is actually using Zapier. Like you can pass it through Zapier and then into Process Street. That's an option. I think that the quick answer to your question is yes, but there's probably a lot more nuance to that question there. So I'd encourage you to reach out and we can just talk about your specific case and how we might solve that. But I've got several very experienced people that are more than happy to help with that one. So definitely let us know. Very excited that the automations is the next step for Process Street. I was exploring Zapier last month. They claim to connect to 3,000 plus apps to Process Street. Not all of them seem useful. Yeah, probably true. You are clearly focused on useful integrations. There are a list of apps you are exploring in the next phase. I vote for Trello and HubSpot. We don't have a published list. There are a bunch that we're kind of thinking of. Our initial move on this, as you have highlighted, is that we're trying to hit the ones that are used by most people, that deliver the most value to the most people. So that's kind of how we got to our list of 6 that we have there. I don't have a specific list of kind of what's in the next phase, although we will submit your requests for Trello and HubSpot to that list, and we'll see what we can do there. But again, send your votes, they count. So please do that in the future. This all looks great. Thank you. You're welcome. Are any other integration platforms on the plan, ConnectWise, Microsoft Shared Drive? I probably just addressed that one. We will again mark down ConnectWise and Microsoft Drive. But yeah, send your requests, please. We will put them on the list. As a follow-up to my previous question about next apps, the new business process is very cool. Sorry, my questions are jumping around. Oh,
I found it.
Okay, I found it.
Okay.
The new business process is very cool and similar to what I would want to do using HubSpot and Microsoft Teams instead of Salesforce and Slack. Okay, cool. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And to be fair, a lot of that could be accomplished with Zapier right now. So if you want to hit us up, we can talk you through what that might look like. Okay. Let's see here. Let's get to some of these folks that have been waiting a long time. To follow up on Amy's question, is it hard to build new integrations with new applications? I would have to answer yes to that, mostly because I'm not a developer. But I can tell you that we spent months on this, and it's not trivial to do. It's also not trivial to do it right. Giving the amount of flexibility that we have was very difficult, but it's something we're committed to. So if you see more, or when you see more integrations from us in the future, we will be adopting the same sort of approach to it, that we would like to serve as many people as possible and provide that flexibility, but it does take a little while. Okay, it seems there are many solutions for process management, automation, RPA, etc. Since you're using DocuSign and Salesforce, they have some process automation too. And then there are solutions like IFTT. How is Process Street unique in what you are showing today? Well, I don't know that the part that we are showing today is necessarily the unique part of Process Street. I think it's part of our total package that makes us a unique offering. And what makes us unique is the flexibility that you see here. It kind of doesn't matter what your workflow is. It can be adapted to Process Street. And some of that may not be super obvious on the surface, but we have myriad different workflows being run on the system, and we serve a very broad selection of customers. So I think the adaptability of what we have and the accountability of what we have are sort of things that the other systems you mentioned don't necessarily have. Now, that's not to say all don't, but there are aspects of all of those different systems that we've kind of pulled together that come together to be our unique view of how this should work. So there are a lot of great systems out there, but that's kind of where we sit in the middle of those. Go ahead, Ann.
Yeah, I just want to just add to that. So for the Salesforce example, I was speaking with somebody who uses Salesforce and was using Salesforce Flows, and it's a great, it's a great feature. The difference would be that one is specific to really sales. So it's about, managing opportunities and leads and sales and all of that. Whereas, Jason just spoke to it, the variety of processes and workflows that can be integrated in Process Street. So it's like, paid time off or employee onboarding or, managing a property or basically anything under the sun. So one other comment that I heard was it was taking a lot to rig up I think that also in general, my personal opinion is that the different applications have their different purpose, like what they shine at. And so sometimes there will be a feature that's added on, but that's not the whole intention of that platform. And so then what I've seen happen is that people will do all sorts of workarounds to try to get a platform to do what they want to do. And then they find, so it's just not the right fit. And myself included, I was trying to get Airtable to do basically to manage workflows and processes. And then I discovered Process Street and I was like, where's this been? It's like, just that's what it's for. And so then I
hired her.
Yeah. So I stalked Process Street and made them hire me.
I saw a Microsoft Teams app for Process Street like Slack. Does that work the same in Teams? We don't have a direct app for Teams. Any integration that would be done with Teams would be via Zapier. Again, we're happy to talk you through kind of what you need to do with that to make sure that that's possible, but we don't have a direct app for Teams. Possibly in the future, we get a lot of requests for it. How do I get help trying to use this to keep track of spending on renovation projects?
Cool. Yeah, you can reach us anytime. The little help button in the lower right corner, you can see it on Jason's screen right there. That reaches our support team directly. And you can also, you can email us at support@process.st if you're not logged in.
I assume Process Street to Process Street automations operate similarly to the current workflow launch codes with pre-populated fields. Is this identical or are there any significant differences? So this is different. The spirit is kind of the same in that like you can pass that information. Ultimately, you could pass more information if you really wanted to via this, just because there are limits on the amount of information you can pass through a link. The other difference here is that this can be fully automated and just kind of happen in the background. You don't have to use links to do it. So there are definite benefits to doing that, doing it that way. And do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't.
Okay, cool. Please list the CRMs you recommend for integration with Process Street. That's a short list. It's Salesforce. That's the only CRM that we currently integrate with. It's the one that we are super tight with. And when I say that it's flexible, I can't reiterate that enough. I've been using Salesforce for 15 years at this point. And most of the integrations that you see are very specific use cases. So if you want to use, one of the apps from the App Store or App Exchange rather, and install that, they're, tend to be very specific use cases or workflows or whatever. Ours is super flexible. Like it doesn't matter if you want to automate something with activities or contacts or opportunities or accounts or leads or whatever. Like we can do all of that. So that is by far our recommendation. And one other thing I'll throw in there is that we have a customer that was looking at a couple of different CRMs, saw our integration, is now considering using Salesforce because of the flexibility that it has. So, I would look there to get started. And if we can't hit it, then, that's obviously a possibility, but maybe Salesforce isn't right for you, but that's definitely a strong contender, should be a strong contender if that's of interest.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in, if Salesforce for whatever reason isn't a fit for you, what you'll want to do is go to Zapier and look at the CRMs you're thinking about and look at what their integration capability is. And specifically, you'll want to look to make sure that it can search and update a record, because if it can't do that, it's just, you're going to be hitting walls for automations, and it's searching and updating is super important for automations or integrating with a CRM.
Great point. This one actually might be in your wheelhouse here. And is there a way to automate the creation of a PDF for print once workflow run is complete and send the file to Slack?
Yeah, great question. I love that you are thinking of all the possibilities. That's awesome. So that could happen. I would need to double check about the sending the file to Slack, but you can for sure do that via Zapier, to where, let's say you have a Google Doc template, and then you have Process Street fill in that Google Doc template. It turns it into a PDF. And I have not personally had that PDF then sent to Slack, but I'm guessing you probably can, but we'd have to double check.
Cool.
And I just got a note from Blake, our Zapier and automation king, and he says you can. So
he couldn't help himself.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Off topic, will there be any updates to the scheduled feature or a way to see the scheduled workflows for a specific process? Right now, you have to click on scheduled and continue to see more. It's not efficient or easy to use. I don't think we have anything scheduled at the moment. That's actually really good feedback, and we will pass that along to the engineering team. What you'll see is a lot of these, what I would deem as sort of like smaller or more very specific requests, they kind of go into the product team, and then magically they just come out one day. One of the engineers will just bang it out and we'll release it and it'll be available. So that's the sort of thing that, like, definitely send that in. We'll pass that on, but definitely send that sort of stuff in, and we'll pass it on to the product team. And it's very likely that someone will see it and say, yeah, that's been bothering me forever. Let's fix that. So
I'm just submitting it right now as a request. Great. Yeah.
Is there a way to make the help on the bottom right question go to the workflow creator, or we get a copy of that, versus Process Street team? Most questions on running questions are likely related to the workflow instruction versus the software.
Oh, I see. So basically, it's kind of like your team has a question about the workflow itself, and it's meant, they're trying to ask your team the question. They're not asking a question about Process Street to our support team.
Thank you. I had not put that one together. It is unfortunately not possible to do that. That's actually a really important piece for us, because that's how we get feedback from customers. I hear what you're saying, though, and that's actually something I will mention to our product team as well. And we'll see if maybe there's a better solution for that going forward. But the short-term answer is not now, but understood, and we will definitely take that back. Okay, I think we got there. I don't see any more questions coming in. Thank you to all of you for sticking around. That was a lot of great questions, so we appreciate that. As just a quick recap, we will be sending a recording of this, so look for that in the next couple days, depending on how long it takes us to produce that. We will send on a link to the help documentation for this. And as always, please reach out if you have any problems. We've got a really awesome support team, and they're willing and able to help. So just let us know, and either we'll help you right there in the help interaction, or we'll hop on a call and set up a time to talk. We're happy to do either of those. So just let us know. So
thanks, everybody.
Thank you to Anne and the rest of the Process Street team. And with that, we'll talk to you soon when the next great new features come out.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.